Welcome into First Pitch for Thursday, April 20th. I am Drew Martin, joined by Adam Trigger, Jeff Michaels, and Ralph Michaels. We are breaking down the Thursday night card on the Diamond, guys. Come join us in the live chat box here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Feel free to reply below if you're watching on replay. Let's start off here. Trigger, I'll start off with you. Adam Trigger, number one the last 365, the last year at WagerTalk.com. Number one KBO handicapper as well, guys. He's got a KBO play up and available on the website. But Trig, hey, let's break it down here MLB style, man. I believe we're talking a little Yankees. You think Yankees Angels? Yanks laying minus 150, over under of 8 here. What are you liking with the Halos and the Yanks today, Trig?
Yeah, Drew. So this is probably, I don't have a client play for Major League Baseball today, but if I could have gotten a better price on the Angels, this probably would have been my play. Specifically looking at the plus 1.5 run line. Now, Drew, we've kind of talked about this. We've tweeted it out before. There's ways to get yourself a plus one. Basically, just a very simple way. You could take half your bet on the money line, half your bet on the run line, but there's a true plus one. There's a little calculator. I could tweet it out. Basically, I like the Angels on the run line, but I'm not willing to lay the minus 155, minus 160, which is why I try to, sort of get those odds down a little bit in the plus one range. And it starts for me here with the Yankees hitting a major league worst 1.86, I'm sorry, 186 batting average against left-handed pitching. Their 299 slugging percentage is dead last, and their 2 home runs is the fewest against left-handed pitching this season. So that's a concern right there for me, and something that I'd be willing to bet against. On the other side, Nestor Cortez is solid. He's a pitcher that I don't really want to fade, but I do find that he will give up a run or two here or there. Look at the last 2 starts. He'll get deep enough, but he'll give up a couple runs, 2 earned runs in his last 2 starts apiece. And the Angels lineup, you look at that 1 through 5, Ward, Otani, Trout, Rendon, Renfro, is good enough for me that I'm willing to sort of like go to battle with them, even though they have not been great on this road trip and really historically at Yankee Stadium. So some very interesting numbers here, Drew. The Angels, 15 and 35 all time at the new Yankee Stadium since the building opened in 2009. And Shohei Otani has struggled here big time. He's 6 for 43 in his career in the Bronx. 4 of those happen to be home runs, but that is a sub 200 batting average for one of the best hitters in baseball. And it's probably why the Angels have lost 5 of their last 6 games in this ballpark and have struggled in this series. Obviously, Otani is one of their best players, so to not really be getting production from him has hurt them in this series recently. With that being said, I just think this spot here coming off of, the 2 losses, little avoid the sweep spot here on the road. And Drew, the reason I love the run line in this situation, getting the extra at bat, of course, you've got 9 at bats to your opponent's 8 if you can get down on a run line with the visitor, because the only way the Yankees are batting in the bottom of the 9th is if they're tied or trailing. It's a little pricey at minus 155, so you could sort of water that down to a plus one, but I think I'd prefer to just play it a little bit smaller if I was going to get involved. So Angels plus 1.5 is the way I'm looking in the Bronx this afternoon.
And Trig, just quick follow up here. Great stats on the Angels, Shohei Otani in this stadium. Do you have any kind of like fundamental reason why that is, or is just happenstance? Hey, when they're in New York, they just don't play well. How are you looking at that?
Yeah, it's interesting, Drew. I mean, the sort of my mind first goes to, of course, the everything's just a little bit bigger in New York. The media coverage for a Japanese player in New York is huge.
Yeah.
We've seen it before. I remember growing up and Hideki Matsui comes over, and you just remember how big of a deal that was. So I'm sure for Otani, like now we're sort of normalized to it. It's happened a few times. We might not take it, we kind of take it for granted here, I guess, in this country. But I still think it's a pretty big deal when, back in Japan. It's a good question for Tokyo Brandon, actually, when he's on the show next. But Otani against the Yankees, probably a pretty big deal back home there. So maybe he presses a little bit. Who knows? And I also wonder, Drew, if it's just a small sample type thing. Like we're only talking about 40 at bats, so that's something that who knows. Maybe it's a buy low spot on Otani in the Bronx because he's one of the best players in the game right now. Hard to see him hitting anywhere sub 200 for any period of time.
Like it, Trig, at Top Flight SI on Twitter. Guys, check him out, wagertalk.com. And again, he's handicapping baseball on both sides of the world here, all over the world. Korean baseball, which he's got to play up for tonight, and Major League Baseball. Guys, you saw it right there coming across your screen. Otani home run tonight. Hey, any props that you're liking, feel free to chime in here on the chat box. We'll get them out on the show. Or if you're watching on replay, feel free to chime in below. Let's head to Ralph Michaels up next at Cal Sports LV. Great follow on Twitter, guys. Always bringing the trends and the angles. Ralph, I think we're heading to a little first five here, laying a half a run. What are you thinking with the Pirates?
Yeah, I'm looking at the database right now. I'm trying to pull up how many times the Pirates were a favorite and what their record was last year. And as it spits it out, I'm going to say this. When it's an MLB season, you can't take preconceived or preseason analysis and carry it into the season when we're almost a month in. Remember, like the Orioles last year, I just pulled it up. Pittsburgh was a favorite. Excuse me, I don't have it yet. Pittsburgh, I'm looking right now. Pittsburgh was only a favorite of this price a handful of times last year. But you can't say, hey, I had Pittsburgh rated last in this division, and now they're second with an 11-7 record. I'm going to compare them to the Orioles. When a young team like this, the Indians have done it. Again, Pittsburgh's payroll, not what the Indians is. But when a young team gets off to a hot start, winning becomes contagious. This team, 12-7. They've gone on the road. In fact, they're the best road team. Now they're at home against the Cincinnati team completely struggling. You look at the Reds, 26th in team ERA, 29th in team whip. And while you look at Contreras, a young pitcher for Pittsburgh who may be their best starter, you say, well, he's got a 6.0 ERA and a 1.733 whip. You've got to look at those situations and say this. He had one bad game against Houston where his stats got completely inflated. He had two quality starts surrounded around them. You actually have the better team at a very fair price. Now, I don't want to lay that with Pittsburgh. And as Adam said, you don't want to lay the 1.5 with the home team in case you're up by one in the ninth. You don't get the runs. So while Pittsburgh bullpen has had some issues, I'm going to go ahead and play one of the hottest teams in baseball, lay the first 5, and we're getting them at a -10 price in that range. So Contreras is for real. Pittsburgh's winning can become contagious. Cincinnati, just a team that's slumping. You're off an 18-0 deficit your last 2 games. Yes, they were at Tampa Bay, but they were also at home. So in their last 3 games, they've lost 8-0, 10-0, and 14-3. They did have an 8-1 win in that range. Again, the bullpen can get shattered. The starter's much better. I just need him to go 5 innings. He gets it done today. Pittsburgh, first 5 against the Reds.
And Ralph, quick follow up with you. We saw a question in here. What about the Pirates sitting at 12-7, kind of in the mix here as we're 10% of the way through the season. Any interest on the Pirates winning the NL Central, kind of shocking the world here against the Brewers and the Cardinals, or you think that's kind of a pipe dream, Ralph?
I do, and you see a lot of young pitchers for Pittsburgh, and number one, do they have the stamina to last the season? I don't know. Will good teams learn to hit them the second and third time around? I think so. So right now, we're seeing a lot of young pitchers pitching the first time this season, and I think that's the edge. When they start seeing those staffs, when they start seeing those lineups multiple times, and even the third time through the lineup, I start to be a little query. So I have my eye on Pittsburgh. I've thrown away my preconceived notions. I've readjusted where they are now. And look, you have a Pittsburgh team that's averaging 5.2 runs per game with a batting average of 257. So, you have a solid. And over the last 7 games, nobody's hitting the ball better. They're hitting 300 with averaging 6.9 runs per game. So it's one of those teams that I've adjusted where I am. I'm restarting them now, but I also don't want to bet into a hot team with inflated lines like Pittsburgh may become against very bad teams, because it's still, you know, I say this all the time in football. If you're going to play an away favorite, you have to make sure you have teams that learn to win on the road. When you're going to start laying a run line with Pittsburgh, you have to learn to bet on a team that has confidence, that knows how to win as a favorite, that can extend the lead and not play to the level of their competition. So that's where I have them now in this range, to see if they can take that next step up. But again, in the first five in a situation with this starter's edge, remember Weaver got so shelled in AAA. He started the season off. In AAA, coming up and making his first start now. And the Reds also 3-13 their last 16 games versus right-handed starters. So added up in this range, I'm okay with Pittsburgh, but I'll be very careful laying the 1.5 runs moving forward until they prove to me they can have that killer instinct.
Like father, like son, from Ralph Michaels to Jeff Michaels here. WagerTalk to sportsmemo.com. Jeff, always good to have you here, buddy. Think we're heading to a little bit of a prop bet here. What do you like? A little home run RBI prop?
Yeah, I'm actually headed to that same game. I'm headed out to that Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game, and hey, if you can believe it, this wasn't discussed before, but I'm attacking that Pittsburgh offense, and I'm looking at Carlos Santana specifically. I mean, like my dad mentioned, Weaver he's actually coming off some injuries, so he came off the IL, but thus starting in AAA. He went 5 innings in his most recent start against Toledo. He gave up 3 earned runs and a big home run in AAA ball. That says a lot, I think, when you're coming up. Now you got an MLB ball club that, as my dad mentioned, is one of the hottest offensive teams in baseball. 5 straight games with 4 or more runs, and they've done it in 7 out of the last 9 as a team. And then you got Carlos Santana specifically, who's hit Weaver well in his career. He's only got 6 at bats, actually, but he's 2 for 6 with 2 home runs and 3 RBIs. And he's off to a pretty solid start. I mean, especially recently. He's gotten a hit in 10 out of his last 13 games, and he's got 2+ hits in 5 of those, not to mention RBIs in 3 straight games there. So I think we could be, I think this is a safe bet too, because we could get it done in multiple ways. We've seen it. Pittsburgh's putting up 6 runs a game. Santana gets on base with a hit. He could be the run scored. He very well could get 2 hits in this game, and he very well could drive in an RBI too. So multiple ways to attack it with Carlos Santana that has a positive history against the pitcher, Luke Weaver, and an offense that's given him advantage or opportunities, to score RBIs and to get, driven in as a run potentially too. So I really like Santana here. A lot of ways to get after it. We're going over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. I believe last time I checked, it was at -120. So I'll take that price.
Jeff Michaels at JM Sports CLE on Twitter. Check them out, sportsmemo.com. You can find Adam Trigger, Ralph Michaels. I am Drew Martin at WagerTalk.com. And guys, if you're a first-time user for WagerTalk, we have a coupon code for you. Try WT at checkout. We'll take 50% off your order. That's TRYWT. 50% off any daily package or 3-day package at WagerTalk.com. Check out Ralph Michaels, Adam Trigger. I am Drew Martin. And also a reminder, it's 50% off daily plays for Thursday. So all plays, 5% plays, discounted to just 50% off there at WagerTalk.com. Huge shout out to the chat box. Everybody joining us live. Raven Rod. We got Sweet James Jones in the house as well. Al, XCal, Uncool22, all of you guys. Mo Harris as well. He's not liking that spot for the Pirates, but hey, I guess we'll find out. All opinions are welcome here in the chat box. And if you have any questions, feel free to fire away. We will answer them on this show, or find them overnight and answer them on tomorrow's show, going live 2:00 Eastern time, Monday through Friday. So guys, we got best bets coming up here. We heard from Adam Trigger in his big game breakdown. Going to throw it back over to you, Trig, for your best bet. And guys, remember, Adam Trigger, #1 at WagerTalk the last 365 days, #1 Korean baseball handicapper as well, and he's got a play up and available for tonight. I believe it's half off as well. Trig, any final thoughts for the show, and what do you got for best bets?
Well, final thoughts. I'll just comment. The last viewer, yeah, the last viewer that we just had up in the comments, Angels small. It's a small sample size for the Yankees against left-handed pitcher. I would agree with that. Not a big sample there. That's definitely something that I sort of had in my notes. Probably should have mentioned that, but still, I guess I'm just I like Sandoval enough where I'd be willing to take a shot with the Angels on the run line on a day where there's just not that much. It's a smaller board, and I didn't have much else. That's just one thing I think there is some value, and there's probably some value on Angels on the money line as well. As far as my best bet for the show, Drew, man, I don't really know how you bet this, but I really like the Phillies to win tonight. I think you could lay the 1.5. You could bet the team total. It all sort of stems around me thinking that Ryan Feltner is not a major league caliber pitcher. I played against him over the total over the weekend. Rockies Mariners. That one ended up getting there pretty easily. He was once again bad as expected. If you look at his last, he's now pitched in parts of the last 3 seasons for the Rockies. And Drew, I got to be honest, he looks like someone that should be in Korea, like in the KBO. Like that's the caliber of pitcher that I'm seeing here is someone that is going to be, you know, out of the majors very soon and probably either in the minors or on his way to a different country to play baseball, which is fine. It's just, that's what I see when I watch him pitch. 13.1 innings pitched so far this year, 26 base runners. That's not good at all. And again, we see this in Major League Baseball sometimes where like the Rockies, they're a little bit handcuffed with their rotation. They kind of just have to deal with it for the short term. No one else in Colorado is really pitching better right now, Drew. They've lost 8 straight. Their starters on this current losing streak have a 9.92 ERA. They're being outscored 64-24 on the losing streak right now. And they have to go to Philly, where they were horrific last year. I believe they got swept in this series last year. I think they maybe took one of the games against Philly, maybe 2, but anything they won was out in Coors Field. I know they got swept in a 4-game set in this series last year. And the Phillies, Matt Strahm, someone I played against last time out, but it was in a spot where I was just hoping he'd be out of the game sooner than later, and he got himself into a little trouble, and he was. But Matt Strahm's got really good stuff, and he's not a starter, but he doesn't. I don't think he needs to go particularly deep here for the Phillies to have success. 3-4 innings is perfectly fine, and once through the Rockies order, he might get 1.5 times through, which is fine here because the Phillies bullpen is starting to bounce back a little bit, Drew. They were right up there with the White Sox for the worst unit in the league, but now I think they've rattled off like 10 straight scoreless innings. And you just look at the guys they have down there, and that I don't think that should be the worst bullpen in the National League. So I do think we're going to see the Phillies bullpen continue on this little sort of bit of positive regression that they've got going on of late. So the best bet that I can find in Major League Baseball today is the Phillies to win this game. Of course, I'm not really interested in laying -200 either. So either you find something to parlay it with, or you lay the 1.5, or you try to, get it into the -1 area, or you could just take a team total over for the Phillies and kind of play against Feltner getting killed, which is kind of what I see happening. So, I'll leave it at that. But the Phillies in some capacity would be my best bet for the show.
Trig, I agree with you, man, on that. I had them circled as well. I didn't want to lay 200. I didn't want to lay the run line with the home team. And when I did the calculation, man, I put it in for the -1. It was still like almost
Still a
flirting
little
with
expensive, yeah.
-170. Yeah. So I left it
Drew,
off,
I want to
man.
bring something up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Trig, you were talking about the Phillies bullpen, and yes, they're on a good run. But listening to you talk, I didn't have this game circled, so I didn't go to it deep. The first 5 is -0.5, -140.
Yeah.
The way you two are talking,
First
that
5 is
puts them in
fine.
a reasonable price range. Yeah.
Yeah, Ralph, that's a good point. I guess like the way I look at, like there's two sides to I like the idea of getting 9 at bats against the Rockies, but at the same time, I do like the fate of Felter. So again, first five's good too. I'm not going to argue with first five either. And as Ralph was saying, lay the half a run. They're leading after 5 innings. You're only laying $1.40. That's a really another good take there.
And it almost brings in like the bullpen handicap can be tricky altogether because I don't remember the last time the Phillies had a good bullpen. I really don't. It's been years where they've been like one of the worst bullpens in baseball. I know they had that run in the playoffs, but outside of that, like this little scoreless streak that you brought up, it's like 10 or 12 innings. This is one of the best streaks the Phillies bullpen has probably had in the last decade, Trig.
Yeah, and I don't expect them to just become the best bullpen in the NL, but if you looked at the sort of numbers through the first 3 weeks of the season, they were right down there with the White Sox at dead last. And I guess what I'm trying to say, Drew, is I don't think they're the worst bullpen in the
Mm-hmm.
National League. So just based on, and their ERA was up in like the sevens, and obviously we've already seen it sort of creep down. They'll probably be like a 5 type ERA bullpen this year. So I do think like long-term positive regression there a little bit, but it's tough to like play out, one day anything could sort of happen, but I think we'll see them trend toward being a little bit better than they are now.
Good stuff from Adam Trigger at Top Flight SI, his best bet in the books. Check him out, wagertalk.com, with that KBO play up for tonight. Guys, I'll follow that up. Trig, I agreed with you on your Phillies take, but I'm going the opposite way in Yankee Stadium. And I do like the stat that you brought up in terms of the Angels struggling in New York. There might be something to that. Everything's a little bit bigger in New York. Maybe for whatever reason, the Halos have struggled there. You talked about Ohtani struggling here. And also Cortez going for the Yankees, guys. He held the Angels scoreless over 7 innings of last year in his only start against them. So they won that game 6-1. I think we see more of the same here. We get the Yanks under the minus 150 price tag here, minus 148. Actually, you can get them as low as minus 142 if you're in Las Vegas at the South Point Casino. I know that because I'm checking out the WagerTalk live odds screen right now. So I'm going on the Yankees for my best bet for the show. Full disclosure, guys, my 2 best bets were I tweeted it out, free play on WagerTalk free picks page. The day game going today, I got the over of 5 in the first 5, and then I got a 5% play up for tonight. So this is kind of like third on the list here, guys, but still Yankees minus 148 for me on the night slate. That's my best bet. Throw it over here to Ralph Michaels again, guys, on Twitter at CalSportsLV. If you're not following him, you need to. He's always throwing out great stats, great trends. He knows the NBA, NHL as well, and obviously knows MLB here on the bases. You see it right there on your screen at CalSportsLV. Check him out, wagertalk.com. Ralph, throw it over to you, man. Any final thoughts here for the show, and where are you heading for best bets?
Just a reminder again, if you bet first innings, I do a first inning report every day on Twitter. It's free at CalSportsLV. It lists if your team scored, if the opposition scored, if you both scored. So it gives you a good dynamic. This is an actual release for me. So not only is it a best bet, it's a client play. And I'll also be on the NBA show. Check out another client play later on that show. I am going to go with the New York Mets. Now, I'm going to bring up a system. So in baseball, I don't always follow systems. I think the NBA systems work great and the NFL systems work great, but it makes sense to me. So when a team is at home as a dog or a pick 'em in game 1 of a series, they have no rest. They're off a road game, an extra inning road game, and they used at least 3 pitchers. Those teams are a horrible 31.8%, and they're minus 25.1 return on investment. That's a big number. And again, you're not talking about San Francisco that struggles. They just snapped a 5-game losing streak, but they were in Miami, so they got a long flight back. What have the Mets done? Well, they're building that confidence that they know they have as one of the best teams in the National League. You win the series against San Diego at home. You go to Oakland, you sweep them. You go to the Dodgers, you're a dog twice, and you still win 2 out of 3 games in that series. Now, I made this game action, but I'm going to mention both Senga and Manea. You know, Senga, we don't know what we're going to get. listen, you played two horrible teams. You played Detroit and Kansas City. But Manea, I mean, his hardball hits are incredible. He's giving up a ton of walks. The Mets are a very good team. They walk 10% of the time, one of the highest rates. So I think they have a huge edge there. You look at San Francisco, off a straight up win this year. They're 0-5, getting outscored on average 7-2. So they have not put back to back wins together. I don't think they do here. I think the Mets hitting the ball very well. I think the pitching staffs are even. The situation for San Francisco, certainly a negative. It was a 3% play, game 909, the New York Mets minus the short price.
Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com. From Ralph to Jeff Michaels at JM Sports CLE on Twitter, sportsmemo.com. Jeff, any final thoughts for the show? Where are you heading for best bets?
Yeah, we had a turnaround day yesterday, so looking forward to that MLB action. I got up tonight for that 50% off price, but I'm actually heading to that Yankees game too. But I'm going to take a different look at it here, and I like the under in this. I looked up the numbers while you guys were talking. Yankees have 118 plate appearances against lefties, and they've played 3 games that were started by lefties. All 3 of those games have gone under the total. Now they face off against Patrick Sandoval, which, I can't argue either one of your guys' points, Drew and Adam. So that's why I kind of look total here. You guys mentioned it. Yankees 30th in the league against left-handed pitchers, and that's all plate appearances, regardless of starter, relief pitcher, whatever it may be, batting 186 as a team. And Patrick Sandoval, I do look early in the year, you're not going to put too much reliance on a first start and, repeating everything that you're going to see. But Sandoval has made 2 road starts now, and he's allowed just 1 earned run on 5 hits. And it was a solo home run, but that was the only run he allowed. Now the Angels are 2-6 over under in the last 8 games. And you got a Yankees team that maybe there's just something about playing in Yankee Stadium. Maybe it's not so much about what team's there, because the Yankees are 3-9 over under at home this year. So not as many runs scored in this stadium as we've seen. The Yankees have gone under in 5 straight games as a team. And it's kind of almost mind-boggling. You look at the last game of a series for the Yankees, we can go back as far as you want. 1-4 over under this season, 2-7 in the last 9 back to last year, 7-14 over under in the last 21. And at home, 3 straight unders and 1-6 over under in the last 7 to end a series on their home field. Not to mention, we talked about starting pitching, but both these bullpens have an ERA under 3. So you got 2 bullpens that can keep it locked down there too. And 6 out of the last 9 head-to-head games between these 2 teams at Yankee Stadium have stayed under the total, including both games to start this series. So I'm not looking at who's winning this one, because either one of you could be right, in my opinion. But I am looking for this one to stay under the total tonight.
Great breakdown there, Jeff. Yeah, good points, man. 2 good lefties on the hill. The stadium comes into effect. And also, guys, I left out one argument here. The Yankees have won all 9 games when facing a series loss this season, meaning they've won all of their series this year, and they won all of the rubber matches, which this is. So hopefully that comes into effect as well. Hey, actually, want to hit the chat box here in Macaroni Tony. Love the name, first off. But it kind of goes to a question we got on yesterday's show as well, guys, and I want to throw it out there to you. Any no-score first inning? Ralph, you brought up your first inning chart. We had a question yesterday, and it was, do professional bettors bet the Yerfy or Nerfy, the yes run first inning or no run first inning bet? And I said yes. I think they do. I personally don't. I bet them before, but it's not like I've made a niche out of this, Ralph. One, do you think professional bettors are going after this first inning, and you think it's a a pretty big kind of marketplace? And do you have any no run first inning bets on tonight's slate?
Drew, I have not bet them ever. I did start looking, and I started looking at some pitchers. There were some interesting trends that I pulled starters who allowed runs in the first inning. And there were some starters there that allowed runs 17 times last year in the first inning. So I think if you want to dive into it, you have to look at teams that are scoring. And when you match them up against pitchers that tend to allow first inning runs, I wouldn't blindly bet it with team trends. Yes, I'm doing the chart. We'll see. I just started. Today was my first play. I loaded it as a free play at WagerTalk, and we'll see. So to me, it's too. There's too many variables where I'd rather bet on a team consistent that you know what you're getting into. Where a pitcher who could just warm up and not be ready to go, give up a couple walks and give up a first inning run. So to me, I'm going to just the rest of this season, I'm just going to play it out, see if I can match up situations. Any plays that I have, I will load as free plays. And I just want to mention one thing, guys. Both of you guys were on the game. I looked at the Yankees at home the last two seasons when they were a favorite of under 155 or a dog with a total over 7. So we took away, some of those doubleheader situations. They are 10-19 over under the last 2 years. So that has been an underplay as well. That's the Yankees at home as a dog or a favorite up to 155 with a total of 7.5 or higher.
Interesting stats there, Ralph. And Trig, anything here on the question first run, yes or no? Are you into that? You think it's a big market going forward?
I mean, I haven't seen a ton of professional money on that market. Like I know of a couple groups that definitely like will mix them in, but the limits sometimes tend to be a little bit lower on them depending on where you're getting down. So I haven't seen a ton of it. Listen though, any market that's out there, I'm sure that there's you can find a way to make money on it. Like I'm sure someone out there has figured out how to beat that. As far as an opinion on today's card, like I guess I'd go with that Yankees Angels game. Sandoval Cortez, good enough stuff. The numbers, like Jeff kind of pointed out, the unders, probably his play and the numbers sort of support it. So I think if I was going to pick one off of the 6 games that haven't started yet, it would probably be that game. But I don't really have any, no real handicap there for me, other than I think that there's signs that it could play under, and the numbers sort of suggest less offense.
Okay, and Jeff, just lastly here, I mean, it's kind of like a quick fix, in the gambling world, like ripping off a Band-Aid. You're going to know a little bit faster if you win or lose with the first inning ones. Do you have any interest in them?
Yeah, it's been a big thing. They call them, I think they're called quick hits on FanDuel now, at least, that they do, who's going to score the first basket, because it's all about getting your money as fast as humanly possible. But, I think to my dad's point, there's a lot of variables that go into play with them, and that's a huge factor. I mean, you can't even rightfully bet them, in my opinion, until you at least see a lineup card released, because you have to, you're betting on the 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 batter there. So, I think that there is a lot that you have to factor in, even outside of the pitcher. You got to make sure that you're not sitting the guy that you're relying on in the RBI section, or, somebody slumping that was hitting 3 and now hitting 5. So I think there's a lot more that have to go into account with them when you're betting on the fact that you're only laying, 6 outs between the two teams. So, I think there is some look that goes into them, but I think it is hard to cap them from looking from an earlier perspective and getting as much dive as we can into the sides behind it. So if you're into those quick hits kind of aspects, I think they're fun, but I think that there may be more reliable, ways to attack games, in my opinion.
Like
Hey,
it.
Drew,
Jeff
I just
Michaels.
went to the database.
Yeah.
So far this year, there's been 279 games. 155 have had a first inning run. That's higher than it's been in the past. Perhaps the pitch clocks with pitchers starting, but that percentage, I can guarantee you, is much higher than it has been. So 155 of 279 have had a yes this year.
And Ralph, you bring up pitch clock, can you think of anything like the new baseballs, anything else like that? Because I believe we're trending slightly to the over as well.
Well, if your leadoff guy gets on, what's he going to do? He's going to steal bases. I mean, we see steals way up. So, if your leadoff guy gets on in the first inning and he gets the second with no outs, the odds are with you. You're going to score a run.
Good point there. Yeah, Jeff, you were onto that as well. The steals part of this in the first inning, even guys. So huge shout out to the chat box. Greg S. Macaroni Tony chiming in here at the end. Barry and Mo Harris as well, guys. Hey, as we recap the best bets here, guys. If you got $100, whose best bet are you going with? Let us know in the chat box. Let us know on replay if you are in the reply section. If you're watching on replay here, I'm on the Yankees minus 148 for my best bet. Ralph Michaels, New York Mets minus the 115. Adam Trigger there, Philadelphia minus the 1.5, minus 115. Or we were talking about it. Ralph kind of pointed him to this first 5 minus the half a run there, minus 140. And then Jeff Michaels, check him out at sportsmemo.com. Angels, Yankees under 8, the plus 100 there. Pick 'em price tag on the under of 8 in Yankee Stadium against the Halos there, guys. So that's going to do it for the show. Again, huge shout out to the chat box. As always, guys, feel free to reply below. And please smash that like button. If you're liking the content, let us know where you're watching from. All is welcome. Check out Ralph Michaels, Adam Trigger, and myself, Drew Martin, at WagerTalk.com, Jeff Michaels at SportsMemo.com. That does it for the show, guys. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Come back and join us right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Smash that like button. Cash those tickets. Thanks for tuning in.
Have you checked out all the new handicappers at WagerTalk? If not, here's your chance. You can take 50% off your first daily or 3-day all-access purchase at WagerTalk using coupon code TRYWT. Our new roster of experts is 30 deep, covering sports from all around the world, giving you tons of options to choose from. All you have to do to redeem this offer is go to WagerTalk.com, choose a handicapper of your choice, and use coupon code TRYWT at checkout, saving 50% on your first purchase.